Contractor? Or
They won the bid, they're the contractor.
Okay. So they're subbing out some of the other work as they go? Or?
Not right yet, no, I don't believe it. Maybe some of the tree work they're not going to do. They're not gonna be doing certain aspects, you know, that if they have to do blasting, which I don't think they would ever, then they'd sub that out. I don't think they'd do that. They have their own subs, and they will have to sub out some of the work. You know, they're gonna have to, you know, get a landscaper when they're doing all the roads, a paver, do all that stuff. But they tell you, they're very, the owner of that company attends the meetings, and he's sharp, very sharp.
Good. Good to hear. Some good news, finally.
And he doesn't send anyone else, he comes himself.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes they just, that's another job, just send someone there. No, he's there himself, he's very responsive, he's quick, and he's being, there's proper oversight, and it's coming along quite nicely, so.
Good.
What's the update on the pump station?
I know that they're working. I think they had a problem with a piece of equipment. A car struck a piece of equipment that was parked there off the road. The car went off the road and into the piece of equipment. So there were no skid marks, no braking or anything, so they had to replace that piece of equipment. So, but they're,
Was it an excavator?
yeah.
Well,
So what happened to the vehicle that hit the excavator?
I don't think it's a vehicle anymore.
I
I
don't
was
think it
gonna
won.
say.
So that was,
Excavators don't move that easily.
I don't know if he was following his GPS and thought it was taking him down that road, but
Up to the golf course?
yes, but that, I've been by there. I don't personally have a recent update of what the situation is there, but I know they're moving along. They're quickly trying to get that in there before the end of the winter, you know,
Right.
before fall starts, and that way they'll have that finished. But
That contract was awarded to RHY,
RHY, yeah, yeah.
so it's a
Which
separate.
contract?
The pump station,
Pump station.
at Stearns.
And they're the ones that can go right through bedrock with their milling machine or whatever they call it? Or do they have to
Well,
blast?
from my understanding, the majority of their work is above ground.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they did, you could see they did some tie-in over to Snake Hill Road.
Okay,
They
yeah.
did something over there.
Yeah, they cut the road right open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think that pump station, I think basically they put some type of foundation structure in the ground and then it sits on top,
It's heavy, so.
yeah.
And the pump station is in place now?
No.
No, but
I
I
know
believe
it-
it's getting close.
The engineering from the time that they had the final plan till the time that it was ready to ship to site was 3 months or something, right?
Yeah, we don't get the weekly updates from them on this.
Right.
But the pump station is not essential for the water line for ExxonMobil. It is essential for H-Foot Road, Berry Corner Road, and Eleanor Lane. They need that pump station.
Yeah, because they're going up in elevation, what,
Yes.
80 or 100 feet or
Yeah.
something like that or more?
And they'll have to use pressure reducing valves at the bottom because the pressure was very high, so they can safely work on it. But hopefully that comes along quickly. And there was a gentleman who asked to be tied in past the point of time, and Mary Jude from the DEP said that if there's money available, they will be tied in, or they can tie in themselves if not. But I believe there will be money available for him to be tied in.
Good,
So
that's great.
I think that the DEP wants anyone, if they're there and it's part of it, and there's funding available, not to go by. If there's still, even though the time limit is up, ultimately there was half that money is from the DEP. It's from the state taxpayers, so they certainly want to make sure that anyone, even though it's past due and they've been notified and notified and notified, they still would want that tied in. So,
Yeah, good.
so.
Well, Jim, while you're on it, you're going over your, any other reports?
Yeah, we have an issue with, I received a letter from the DEP stating an issue with ETR labs, revoked effective immediately. No analytical measurements performed by ETR laboratories may be submitted to the Mass Department of Environmental Protection, where the department requires analysis to be conducted by a certified lab. The Mass DEP will immediately remove ETR labs from its list of certified laboratories, and ETR labs should not represent itself any way being currently certified by Mass DEP. The problem is they filed court injunction appeal, so while the appeal is still going on, they remain on the list because of the appeal. The problem is if you look at their little box at the bottom, It says it does not meet the DEP drinking standards for testing.
Yeah, I
Our
read that
regs
report.
state that you have to. So, you know, there's a little teeny box at the bottom, and that's what the gentleman who was specifically in charge of certifying labs called me. He said he is unable to, because of the litigation issues, really make a comment, but this is the reason why the certification was taken away, is because they cannot comply with the
And
standards.
I read that report. This
Yeah.
is the 3 or 4 page report.
Yes, and I did send it to everyone, and
Yeah.
and you know what? We should have sent this out, and I take responsibility for that. We should have sent it out to as many people as possible right away, but the litigation happened quickly, and now you're stuck in the middle, even though it doesn't comply with our regs, because he read our regs. The DEP asked for our regs. We sent it to him, the ones you signed, and he said they do not comply with your standards or regulations for your well testing. Right now, they do remain on the list as a certified lab. Not that many people use them, but we did run into one situation that someone had used them.
So what would happen if somebody unknowingly, a resident goes to them, has testing, and then puts the results into this board?
Well-
We would not be able to
Well,
accept
based
the
on this letter
results?
from the DEP at the time, they told us not to.
Right.
Based on our, then it was appealed, so they remained on the list as a certified lab, although they're in appeal. And although he said it, and he called and said, based on our well regs, the Charlton well regs, it says at the bottom, does not comply
Yeah.
with DEP standards.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So, I'm very familiar with what happened in this situation, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it, right? So like, when it comes to what this board accepts and what's certified, there's an education to be learned about it. It's not either you're certified or you're not.
Mhm.
It's what meets parameter. There's 80-something different things in the water, chemicals in the water that we're looking for.
Compounds that you test.
Compounds that we're testing. So the question is, what really is the problem here, right? That's what we want to know. Is it safe or is it not safe? With this particular company, I tried to find out what's wrong. I heard through the grapevine that there potentially may have been some fraud. I don't know that to be true, but that might be the case. I also heard that that company had spent over $500,000 on a piece of equipment, state of the art, and that the state is not familiar with that piece of equipment and is not going to accept those results from that equipment because they're not caught up with the technology. So I've heard different things. Now, when you talk about what is actually allowed in our town, if you look at the different compounds, there's so many different levels at that, and I think if this board is gonna, if we're gonna dig into this, and I think we should get a well-rounded education on it from a professional or a group of professionals. I know, Gary, you specialize in water, you may,
Yeah, I'm not a lab expert.
But
I would not tell you. But it's
I know.
it's a certification.
It's-
The state holds that certification, and
But what do they certify?
they certify the lab, and they certify the lab for each of the methods they're running. So, for example, you run a coliform bacteria test. That's method ABC. So they'll certify that lab on method ABC for bacteria. For drinking water, it's 524.2. They'll be certified for 524.2. The same exact test you can run in a wastewater sample is an 8260. They might be certified for 8260, but not certified for 524.2 drinking water.
Right.
Same test, same results, different detection limits. Same machine. So the state certifies the lab for all of the different types of tests they run, and it's all listed. So if the town of Charlton's regs say you must be a state certified lab, and then the town of Charlton says you have to test for these 30 different parameters, whatever test they're using for those 30 parameters would have to be a state certified method and certified by, and approved by that lab.
I also,
Just a quick question. So if they're not, if that box approving, saying DEP is giving their approval, if they're not, haven't given the approval, how can this board accept anything from them?
I also want to point out, and again,
Even if we're right to do it?
Yeah,
Legally, how could we do it?
I want to point out that, and this may be the answer to that question, but the state certifications is for public water supplies. That state does not control private water supplies. This
Okay.
board does. So this board refers to the state as
Right.
guidelines,
Right.
but it is not law. But I'm not saying to accept it, not to accept it. I have no opinion as to it, and what I'm saying is, I think if we want to dig into it, we should hear from some of the professionals in the trade, so the three of us get a better understanding of what's going on, because I think it's at a deeper level than I certainly know. And I know, Gary, what you just said, feeds us into that, but I looked into the whole thing, and all of a sudden it was like, that's above my head, and it's like there's a lot going on there.
I agree.
And technically, or legally, they are allowed, because Jim suggested what the letter was on January 31st.
Mhm.
There was also a rebuttal letter that came out after that and said, to make things clear, they are legal, or there was a letter that said something to that effect.
No, it was legal, if I may.
Yes.
When we received this, it was quite clear in bold letters.
Yes,
So what do you do?
right.
They're not certified lab.
Yep.
So, you're not, apples are apples. It says in our well regs, which they do not, and Matt's absolutely right. They told me specifically, the DEP does not mandate or have any control of the private well regs. They specifically, but in all well regs, we specifically say we will adopt DEP standards for acceptability, period, in there. And that's why, when they talked to me, they're in the middle of litigation. The owner of ETR called screaming. He was very upset with me. That you have to accept it, this is in litigation where it's currently, and he was right, they are currently on, but this letter said they were not. So what do? We follow the DEP guidelines for drinking water standards. So it's hard to say, yeah, we can accept ETR because you're back on the list, when at the bottom, they're clearly defined that they do not meet DEP's drinking water standards. In our well regs, it says you have to. So it was we want to make sure that people have their water tested. It's certainly accurate, and I think that's why we had Gary do that, because there's always that question of, and especially labs, that some people don't trust certain labs, and we want to make sure that lab, and this gentleman from the DEP who's in charge of certifying the labs indicated to me they are not up to standards and should not be used, but currently on the record, they are still, because of litigation, back on that list.
Through an appeal.
Yeah.
Through the appeal.
Right.
So I was stuck in a situation, and the poor gentleman came in with the lab testing. He had no idea. They're not advertising out there, and
Right.
certainly it became a situation of, does it affect public health or safety of the environment? And you have to look at it that way.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So, in all fairness, because Kathleen said, one of you said, what do you do if somebody uses them by mistake? Well, right now, this board hasn't made any comment one way or the other. So if someone spent the money and come in with a result from that company, I think it should be accepted. Now, if this board says, let's put a hold on this company until we figure out, we get educated ourselves as a group, or we hear a finding from DEP, then that may cover our tail from the Board of Health. And so if somebody comes in after today's date or whatever day we decide on it, now at least Jim has something that says, no, on this date the board said they're not going to accept these results. And again, I don't have an opinion on this one way or another. I don't know enough about it. But if we're gonna not allow that company to give results for the water test, and I think this board should make a ruling on that. And then anything that was tested prior to today should be grandfathered, if you will, and any new data that would come after today wouldn't be accepted.
Jim?
Yeah, I just had a question, just so that I can understand this better through the chair.
Mhm.
Matt, if our regulations say already that we do comply with DEP certification, then what does it matter? I mean, if somebody comes in at any time with this lab work, they're not in compliance with DEP, so we can't accept it.
They are in compliance. The follow-up letter to that letter says that while the appeal is going on, that
Oh,
they
they're
are in compliance. So we would have to accept it, unless this
Okay.
board decides
Okay,
not to
okay,
do that.
okay. Well,
Yes.
all right.
Only to that, Matt, if you read the bottom of ETRs, they say they do not meet the drinking water standards set forth by the DEP. It says right on it,
On ETS?
on ETR's lab report. So seeing that, how do we in good faith and responsible, and the people who don't really know, the layperson, say, okay, ETR labs, no problem. When we don't even, they're not even testing to our well regs.
Well, if it says it on their
It does.
well report, then that's our key right there to say, not accepted.
And God forbid I never looked at that. No one has, because it's come in with that little thing at the bottom, and he said that's what triggered them to go to that lab. That note at the bottom, because they didn't want to lie, so he went and inspected the lab and decertified them based upon that box at the bottom that says they do not meet the DEP's drinking water standards for drinking water. So that, he said, alone, without this letter, should be enough for this board, because they do not regulate private wells, to say in the best interest of the people having these tests that these may not be accurate, so we cannot accept them.
So what if the lab eliminates that sentence? Now what?
There's a legal issue. They have to put it there, he said. That's why they had it there. That's the whole thing. And it's not even based upon DEP standards, on our own. He took our regs, he said, I reviewed these 3 times. He said, they do not meet your well regs, Charlton well regs that are signed recently by this board. They do not meet it, he said. So you don't even have to go by this letter due to litigation. That bottom box would prohibit them from this board accepting them.
Do you have one of those?
It's in one of the files, yes, but I'd have to look.
No.
There's hundreds.
Yeah, okay.
Andrea and Kim went through them all to find them, and they all say it at the bottom. I'll forward you the.
I think this board should take action on it in the name of public health and safety to the residents. I think we should take action on it. It's just a matter of doing it legally and not getting ourselves in trouble.
I agree.
And so that's why I'm saying, if there's litigation going on, well, then this board says, while litigation is pending, we're not going to accept these results. We have the right to do that.
It
I
could
would
be
say.
as simple as that. I think that way we've got ourselves covered. We're also adhering to public health and safety.
Well, when we received this letter, it doesn't say. All it says is it's very, very strict that they are not in compliance. So, being in due diligence as a director, I got to say, well, we can't. Even if we didn't have a meeting and I sent it forward to the board, how I good faith accept this letter from a family that wants to move in there with kids when it says at the bottom, we don't even meet the drinking water standards for testing.
Yeah.
So
Right,
that's the problem.
Right, so.
But then the
So-
second letter came in from DEP.
That's because of litigation. They had to legally, because they're trying to protect themselves during the litigation. Once the appeal is done, they had to remain on there. But like you said, the DEP does not monitor or have any control over private drinking wells. This board does. This board protects the residents of Charlton from contamination, and they assure that their tests that come in that are accurate.
I think we definitely need to ensure the health and the well tests of residents. Now, I like your idea, though, if somebody's come through in the past, I don't know.
Well, we did on one,
grandfathered.
because there was nothing. It was nothing, like Matt said, there was nothing pertinent in here in the test that was even an indication. There was no.
Yeah, for us
It
to
was
go
clean.
back and say, oh, by the way, we got a letter and you got.
And they
to go out and
immediately
spend
said, you know what,
dollars."
we didn't know, and they did, then we're gonna use someone else from now on, because we really don't want to have an issue. But,
So, all right, so I don't know where everybody else is with this,
but it is the board's decision. But if you draft a well regs and you expect us in this department and myself as the director to make sure that when the girls come in, they refer to the well regs, and it doesn't meet them, then we really don't have any choice but not to accept them.
Correct. Especially,
So, We
unless
can't,
and until.
it's not a tit for tat
they-
thing, it's strictly that you said you do not comply with DEP drinking water standards, then our regulations say you have to. It's a moot point,
Right, so
even
until
without this
ETR
letter.
Until ETR can get this resolved with DEP and have DEP say you're certified for.
And they very well may come back into compliance,
Right,
like Matt said.
and
They,
let's hope they get it resolved, but I think in the meantime, I think we should not accept, going forward, we should not accept results through this company until this is resolved.
and I will be on top of this to make sure that, it's in litigation, who knows how long it could take, I don't know, but the DEP was, you know, I called them with the person standing here and said, does this letter still hold weight? And she said, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Then someone else called me, and then we went in back and forth, and finally the gentleman that certifies the lab got on the phone, said, I want your well regs, I want to read them. He read them in detail, he said, they're very good regs, by the way, so I'm going to let the board know, he said, you have very good well regs, he said, and they do not currently meet your well regs.
So there we have it. Kathleen, anything further?
Well, is there a motion?
No, no, not yet, but I don't want to cut anybody off. I know where I'm going with this. I'm thinking we definitely need to not allow results to be from this lab to come in to this office and for somebody's private well or public water supply for that matter.
I think if something does come in, I would ask the board to look at it in a case scenario, which I don't think it will, but some of these are old, these tests, but usually they come in pretty quick. But I don't have it took us a long time to find ETR testing information. We pulled all kinds of files to find that, and I will send that to the board, that box at the bottom. It's on all the information, but it's not up to me, it's up to this board what you want to do. We just want to make sure that, you know, there was a lot of confusion that day. I felt bad for everyone, but, you know.
So, Mr. Chairman, you were on a roll with a motion, and I was gonna so moved to make it into a motion. For discussion, I wanted to add the stipulation that while it's pending the appeal process until a final outcome of that process is determined, we put this company on hold, starting with any test dates from August 21st, 2018 moving forward.
Correct. I'm good with that.
You second that motion?
So, yeah, I seconded, but just for discussion, I don't think it's necessary to do that, because I think we're covered, by the stuff that Jim has said. However, I don't think it hurts, so.
Yeah, I think we need to have it official.
I
It
think-
should be.
I think it gives our office staff a little bit of ammunition too, because when it comes in and somebody spent some money and the arguing starts, our office staff could say, the board's voted on it, it's black and white.
Right.
Because, to
Yeah.
be honest, I don't see them all, and the girls are strictly, if they see something, they pull out the regs, and I don't look at them all, so they're only going by the regs, so it does, like Matt said, it does provide clear guidance that there's no confusion in the future until they can clear their case up with the DEP and get back in good standings.
One last question. What's the probability that some results, just based on your history here?
Very low.
Very low. So if this is gonna happen, it's gonna be one or possibly two for the
Yeah.
6 months or whatever it's gonna take.
We
to
do not
resolve
see
the
ETR labs enough, that's why it took us so long to find
Okay.
the report, and
Okay.
then when we had.
Furthermore, if, well, I don't know if this would count, but didn't DEP specifically look at those results?
Yes.
Yes.
And then we got the green light from DEP regardless.
Regardless, we did, because they, like Matt said, they do not have control over private wells. This board sets those regulations, we do the enforcement in the office.
So if our office comes into a case where someone may have been grandfathered and we get a lab that's predated till tonight, we could always ask DEP if they could examine it to make sure they were comfortable with it, because that's what we did in the last one, and then everyone's
Good.
covered.
Yeah,
Then everybody knows.
Yeah, because we had to do our homework, because we take some responsibility too when we get this, but we took it for the word of the DEP, you know, that this was it, they're not a certified lab, so it sets up a flag of whoa, you know,
Mhm.
but certainly it's, I don't see that many from ETR.
good, all right. So we have a motion and a second to not allow lab results from ETR or well tests until litigation is complete and DEP certifies them for
And notification to the board of that, so you can,
Right.
you'll have to vote on changing what you voted on tonight.
correct. So in the interim, then, it would be nothing until further notice.
But if I do receive anything, I will notify the board,
Correct.
so you're
Yep.
aware that we have
Yep.
something, and if you want to take a look at it yourselves.
That's
that's-
fine.
that's
Yeah,
the
please
thing
keep
to
us
do.
advised. So we've got a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous. Passes.
All right,
Thank you.
Can we stay on that topic?
Yeah, sure.
So now that the vote's over, does this board want to get an education on that whole process?
Sure.
There's a lot to it.
Yeah,
I think we should set up a meeting. I know probably at least two people that seem to have an education on it that would be willing to come to the board and let
perfect.
us understand.
We'll put them on the agenda.
And the DEP said if if you'd like them to come down, the DEP would be, the certification gentleman said if you need a better explanation for your board. But the problem is, he said now it's in litigation, you have to wait till after.
That's fine. In the interim, by all means, Matt.
He would explain what the process is for certification, but it's totally up to the board.
Yeah, could we have a closed meeting for that? Probably not.
Probably not. There's plenty of experts around that know way more than
Yeah, I
mean.
think just a general informational, educational type
Yeah.
of.
It would be
you know,
nice
where
to
we
hear
can-
from DEP though.
Yeah, but at the same time, we don't want to get them in tiptoeing around certain.
No, but that's
issues
their
that-
job. I mean, they set the regs. The board adopts a private well, but certainly, I think in our well regulation, he said they were very well written, but
Mhm.
it's something that you continually need to educate yourself.
Furthermore, if we ever ask DEP to come, we don't have to be specific
No.
on any company.
It would be,
Correct.
it would be.
The process.
The process
General.
itself on certification of a lab. Don't be specific, but
Nope.
you're right. And I think that would help us in the office also.
Right.
Because we look at results, we get all kinds of things that come by the desk, and we can only go by what the board, you approved the latest well regs, you made changes to that,
Yeah.
so.
If you can get somebody in for the next meeting, all the better,
Okay. I can work on it.
okay?
And we'll figure out a meeting date and see if we can pull it off, and then maybe request DEP,
Mhm.
see if we can do it, or maybe see what DEP's schedule is. Maybe we might
Yeah.
make a meeting to accommodate them. Or,
Yeah, sure. Whatever works for them.
Like as Matt said, education is always good.
Just to play devil's advocate, if the chances of us running into this issue are, what I'm hearing is fairly minuscule, there's a lot of things that we might be educated about. I'm not sure. I guess I'm not convinced that this is the best use of our time.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
In the little education that I got on it, I believe that the way our process is in this office right now does not always compare apples to apples. And I think if we had an education on what gets sampled and what's accepted and what's not accepted, I think it may let us look at some inconsistencies that we have set up right now.
With our own regulations.
I think so. From what I'm understanding, there's a bigger picture going on, and we're not water experts, so we don't know. But then in hearing some of the nitty gritty in it, it was like, yeah, we're not even close. And I think that's what I'm suggesting.
Okay.
for that reason. But I understand what you're saying. I'm not necessarily saying meeting after meeting.
But it can be, in other words, the information can be translated into, we can use it basically
I would-
with our own policies.
I would think.
With a copy of our regulations right in front of us as well, while we're, you know, we could study them beforehand and then.
I'm sorry, that makes sense. So, thank
Keep,
you.
keep in mind the DEP reviewed the regulations and said they're very good.
Yeah. Okay, well, either way, we
Yeah.
can,
They can be-
I'm all for more education on this because.
Can I just ask, when were the regulations last reviewed and changed?
About 5-6 meetings ago.
Yeah, earlier this year.
Yep.
Oh, so they're
Pretty
up to
recent.
date.
Yep.
Well, yes and no. We looked at some of them. We made some changes and we tightened some things up.
Right.
But we didn't get into any of this part of it.
No, this was not. This is a whole different.
So then this part of it, when was that looked at before?
Never?
Never?
Yeah.
Since they were put in place?
Are you going down the road of contamination limits and so forth? Is that where you're headed with this? or-
No, I'm more talking about the certification. So
Okay.
you say so-and-so certified, but what are they certified for? Because each compound gets its own certification. I think you can go on the website and look.
Each test, yeah, this whole thing, I just read it, it's primarily related to bacteria analysis.
Mhm.
Exactly.
So
That's why they approved, because it wasn't bacteria analysis, not to interrupt.
that's exactly, when you do a potability test, you test metals, you test volatile organic compounds, you test bacteria. Those are the three primary groups of things. But each of those metals may be done, if it's done by a different method, certain metals are done by a 200.7, certain are done by a different method. So each of those methods is a certified method. So just because you guys get a test and Andrea looks at it, she needs to know where to look to say that all of the tests are certified methods approved by DEP, because your reg says the method needs to be approved. So it's not as simple as the car is registered. Every single tire needs to be certified, every
Yep.
part.
Okay.
So she needs to know where to
So
look,
the-
and
so
Jim
the
needs to know where to
result-
look.
Right.
Quite
I think that's
detailed.
where Matt's going, is
Okay.
you guys basically need education on reading lab reports and understanding the certification process. You don't need an education on how the certification, behind the doors of the analytical part. That'll go over all of our heads way too quick. But you need to understand what the certification means, where it is on the lab report, how many certifications there should be on a standard potable drinking water test.
Okay.
And I guess where I was going with it is, okay, if you're certified for bacteria or whatever, but they're testing for something else, is it legal? You know what I mean? Because are they certified for what they're testing at that time? You could be a certified lab for X, Y, and Z, and we'd be testing A, B, or C, and,
Exactly.
they're certified lab, but they're certified for X, Y, and Z, but we're testing A, B, and C.
Certified for the method that's required by your rank.
So I just think it's a little
Yeah.
deeper that if we got to hear it once and maybe it would, oh, okay, that's what they're talking about. We might not do anything about it, but I thought it would be fair for this board to at least get a once-over on it, so we had a little understanding.
Okay, I'm good.
I'm good with that.
You all set?
Yep.
Yeah, we're all set with that.
I'll try and go fast, but I just wanted to let the board know that I'd like to thank Steve's Repair, specifically Steve Silvesca. There was a family at 45 Flint Road, a very nice family, the Banks family, that were gone for about 6 to 8 weeks without a well pump. And the insurance company, I contacted them and said, why haven't you paid for the claim?
Lightning strike or?
It was a lightning strike.
Okay.
And he said, we will. I said, because I'm ready. The poor family has 4 or 5 children, 5 boys, and living in a house hauling water every day. And I was alerted by Ann Salou, who went there for issues with animals. So I got right on the phone. I told them I was going to have the people out of the house. It's not, they have no toilets. They have no flushing facility. They lost their business because they ran a daycare out of there.
Mm.
And Steve Silvesca spent till like 8 o'clock at night. I had the insurance company call him and he stopped what he was doing, made time in his day, and made it happen for them and got them water. So I'd like to let the board know that Steve Silvesca went above and beyond and helped out this family.
And they were able to stay in their house.
And they were able to stay in their house because of him, at last minute notice, because he cares, and him and his wife are great people, and they helped this family out. So
That's
it's
great.
great.
We like this kind
A
of.
good story.
Kudos to them.
Yeah, and kudos to them. So I think this, let this board know that that's what happened with that, and that's a sad situation to see.
Yeah.
You know, I go home and turn on my faucet like anybody else, and there's a family with 5 children because of a well pump and an insurance mix-up that wasn't paid. So the guy in the insurance company said, I'm going to personally call him and tell him just do the job and send us the bill. And he did. He called Steve and said, because Steve had to get some. I think he would have went anyway. His wife said we may have an old pump, but you know, they did a good thing. So Steve and his wife Jamie, very good people. Steve was out there until 8 o'clock at night, and he did get it going for them, and the family was very, very happy.
So, wow.
So that's a good note. There are good people out there working hard to help out other people. So I only facilitated being aggressive with the insurance company and told him, listen, I'm going to put them out at your dime, and I'm going to issue an order of condemnation on the house and inform the board. And he said, whoa. Let's get him a pump.
Mhm.
So, but then trying to get someone to install, I guess there were like 15 or 20 different houses struck, according to other people that I talked to, with their well pumps struck by lightning strikes. So they were all backed up, but Steve Silvesca made time, and I wanted to thank him, and I did call him and thank him personally, and he's did a great job. So just want to let the board know that.
Thank you, Jim.
So also working with a gentleman who lives on Wilson Lane. I think Matt, I spoke to you about him. He did come in. We had a long discussion. Even though ExxonMobil is using Wilson Lane, it's only to facilitate the municipality to shoot down that road. But then I looked into it further. He has contamination of salt, so I notified the DOT, and they've agreed that he's eligible for them to hook him up to the water if ExxonMobil puts it there. So he is going to get a water line on, likely, and it's not going to cost him anything.
Wow.
Nice. More good news.
More good news, but it was a little bit rough there in the beginning because he was quite upset. He thought that he should automatically, and I told him I didn't get a chance to speak to ExxonMobil, even though the water line's going there. And she explained more. Johnson spoke to him also that it's only to facilitate the best route. But he's close to the Mass Pike, and they had a problem across the street, and his pipes are generally clogged with salt. So the DOT said yes, he is eligible, because they just did behind Sims Racquetball Club, Health and Rec. They just replaced another well and gave him town water because his salt was bad. Then he didn't want to decommission his well after he signed it, and I told him that your well is not good anyway. It's so chucked with salt, and he agreed. So because the DOT doesn't want to even. They want to make sure that well's not used because they're drawing off all the salt, and it's so high that he couldn't even run the water in his house. So they did hook him up. So that's Upham Road, I believe it's.
Upham Farms.
Yeah, Upham Farms. So that's that. So two good. The people are getting water. It's from ExxonMobil. It's from Casella, the Southbridge, or it's from the Mass Highway, which is DOT. They are doing their due diligence when it's high in salt. So this gentleman was very happy I called him today. So I've been quite busy in here. We had a discussion today with the state in regards to extension of authority to camps, and they're having an issue with the change in the code. So we're going to have a meeting here with the state. It's specifically for the 2 specialty camps. One's in Oxford and one's in Charlton. Camp Joslin, it's a special needs camp, and they want more authority to make sure there's physicians and licensed people there, and the doctor's not giving her authority to someone of lesser care under her direction, which she has the right to do, but they're saying that the delegation of authority doesn't lie outside a hospital setting. And then there's a problem with all our camps, because if you have a specialty need, then there needs to be a doctor there. These camps are not going to be able to afford to have a doctor there for one person. So it's a big discussion today. So we're going to meet with Steve Hughes, the Director of the Department of Public Health, and he's going to come in and we're going to discuss this issue. And that would fall within the board's purview when you do the inspection, that how do you tell, there would be no camp. Camp Joslin and would be gone, and Camp Barton would be gone in Oxford, because if they need a doctor there to work under the scope of their license and not being able to delegate it to an RN or to a paramedic, there's no way to operate. They all have to be tested throughout the night. So that's a big issue for us, and that's a hot topic right now with the state. So they'll be meeting here. I'll certainly let the board know when we meet with the state to discuss that, but that really affects all children's camps throughout the Commonwealth of Mass.
How hard can they push that? Can they overrule whatever we decide? They can.
No.
No?
If we meet the minimum standards, it's local authority. State does not hold authority over local. It's this board's decision, and it would be a decision that the doctor's sitting there, you got 3 doctors, they're in charge, they're there all the time, and they have 3rd year, 2nd year nursing students that have taken a specialized class just to specialize in diabetes, and they're gonna be diabetic nurses when they leave there. So they feel that they're in adequate hands, but there's been an incident, and they've corrected that. There are mistakes that can happen anywhere. You're in the middle of the night, it's a dark room, you're trying to make calculations on what the medication would be. But certainly, nothing has happened in Charlton. So I just want to let the board know that. But we are one of the only 2 specialized camps like that in all of New England. So they're needed. So we're going to have a meeting about that. I don't know how we could question the doctor's right to delegate authority. I've worked under doctors' delegation of authority, whether it is in all the paramedics in Charlton work under a doctor's physician that signs off on their license, which allows them to work in the town of Charlton, which is not a hospital setting, it's outside. But so I just want to let you know I had a 45-minute discussion with the state today about that one specific issue. So we will have a meeting. And also, quickly, I was voted again for Region 2, 74 communities, the FEP Steering Committee, Executive Committee. I was voted the Vice Chair of the Executive Committee. So I just want to let the board know I do attend those meetings.
When do you have time for all this?
We find time. And I was also a voting member for the DPH. It's called LSAC. We meet in Framingham. I'm still on that board. And the Region 2 has 2 votes for all the money that's distributed for the Department of Public Health. A lot of it's going for opioid, a lot of things. I know that we'd like to direct them in a different direction, but there's very limited funds, and it's going down every year. They're taking away funding. So, but just wanted to keep you updated, and that's brief synopsis of what happened in the last couple weeks.
No other issues with camps this summer?
Camps are done. I inspected a camp today, Challenger Camp.
Yep.
It's a soccer camp. It's on Bond Road.
That'd be
We had an
fun.
issues with them complying with the new regs.
Yep.
So we met with a bunch of towns to help them into compliance, and he ended up getting approved in Shrewsbury, Leicester, and Charlton, but he didn't have time in Oxford because he couldn't meet the regulations, the new regulations that have changed. So we sent him the changes, he didn't read them, so we got him back in order, and safe to say that 60 kids today showed up at the soccer camp in Charlton.
Good.
Under
No
proper
issues.
supervision, no issues,
Good.
very good, well run, so.
Good. Good.
That's the last camp of the year. Camp Joslin, let's let everyone know, is closed for the year, so there's no issues there. But I'll keep the board updated. And that's all I have.
Okay. I think that's it, but before we go, I did want to, if we can come up with a date for our next meeting in September.
Totally up to you.
3 weeks, 4 weeks? What do you think?
I'm easy, whatever makes sense to you.
I like the 3-week program.
3 weeks? I'm for that myself. I don't know where that puts us, but
3 weeks from now is the 11th.
11th of September?
Well, let's see, 1, 2, 3. 3 weeks is the 11th, yeah.
September 11th?
911.
Yep.
I'm good with that.
Works for me.
It's up to you. It's your
Perfect.
meeting. We'll set the agenda.
Tentatively, yeah.
Okay.
And Matt may have some folks that can
Yeah,
come
let-
on in and talk about water too, so.
Yep, well, let me know.
If we can get a hold of somebody, put them on the agenda for new business. Other than that, I think we're probably good to go.
I know the particular person I was talking about has a vacation coming up. I don't know when it's coming, but
Okay.
it's getting close, so I don't know if it's going to interfere with that date.
Okay,
Okay.
well,
We're going to Nova Scotia, so we'll have to see. I think they go for 10 days, and I don't think they've left yet, so it may
okay.
may come right
May
in that
impact
time.
it. What would happen if we have it 3 weeks from the 11th? Yeah,
I'd be probably home run.
okay. Good. Either works.
Okay.
Okay, motion to dismiss.
So made?
Second?
I second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is over. It is 7:45. Thank you, everyone.